So I finally got my butt out to see the Sonic movie, and I have a lot of feelings. Let's discuss them right now.
I got hot sauce in my bag, swag.
A quick shout out to Defrin. This is a fan of Metal Duckles that they drew, and wow, check out Metal Duckles here. He's got the T in the right hand over there, and then he's got a bowl of spaghetti, my favorite food of all time, in the left hand. So this looks absolutely perfect, and you see Defrin's got the social media info there, so Defrin knows how to play this. So thank you so much, Defrin. I really appreciate it. Anyway, hello there, beautiful human. My name is RidersDX. Welcome to my channel, where today we've got a lot to talk about in terms of the Sonic movie. And so I got to see it this past weekend, and wow, there are just so many things I want to talk about, but here's how the video is going to work basically. So first thing is, I actually went to the comment section of my YouTube channel and also to Twitter and asked you all what you all thought about the movie, because I thought I would love to hear what some of your opinions are and kind of just see how they compare to mine, and yeah, just kind of get an overall feel of how people felt about this movie. But I think it just goes without saying that it's pretty huge that we got a Sonic movie at all. I think I don't know, I guess when I first got into Sonic as a kid, I never would have imagined that he would have been able to make it to the big screen, just because I didn't see a lot of video game movies make it to the big screen, and of the ones that did make it, not a lot of them were very good. So it's pretty insane to see Sonic out in the limelight right now in this manner. It's just really a dream come true for my inner 6-year-old self. But getting back on topic, basically I'm gonna go through some comments of people and kind of let you all see what they thought about the movie, and then I'm going to talk about my thoughts about the movie. I'll start with a non-spoiler section first, and then I will go into the spoilers. And so there are also no spoilers in the comments of these reviews either, so you don't need to worry about spoilers, but I will let you all know when I do start talking about spoilers, because I am aware that there are still some people that have not seen the movie yet, and I don't want to be the one that ruins it for them. I mean, it's pretty easy to run into a spoiler right now, unfortunately, but I'm not gonna let myself be held responsible for that. Okay, so there were quite a few different comments that praised the movie to no end. So here are what some of those people had to say. I loved it for so many reasons. First, I like how quickly the film progressed, because get easily bored during films. Also liked how the film always keeps you on your feet with many situations. The humor is surprisingly solid, the characters have good dialogue between each other and personalities, and the visuals and animation are stellar, especially Sonic, as he has very cartoony and fluid animation. Also, I'm glad they took it in a new direction when it comes to Sonic and Robotnik and their characters. The movie was great. Even though it was fast paced, it had the audience wanting to see more of Sonic. It's a good thing. They are going to give us something big in the sequel, combined with the anticipation, wonders, and questions that they left us with when the movie finished. This movie was freaking phenomenal. As a longtime lover of Sonic since the 90s, I was very well pleased with how this production came out to be. Thank you very much, Fowler, for listening to the fans from the very beginning on his design, and to everyone at Paramount, a job well freaking done. You guys really pulled it off. I can't wait for the next installment of this production. My expectations were very low going into this movie, but whether you liked or didn't like it, as Sonic fans, we had to go in trusting Paramount would do their jobs correctly. Not only did they do that, but they made me feel like I was back in my childhood, and made me feel proud to be a fan after watching how much work they actually put into this. 10 out of 10. The movie was awesome, nostalgic. It reimagined the character while keeping some things while making a few changes. Overall, I loved it. This movie captured the spirit and love of the fan base, as well as this was a love letter to the character and series in general. This movie is the first one ever that has given me such a great feeling of joy and fun every time I watch it. You could tell Jeff Fowler and the cast deeply cared about Sonic and his legacy. I was very emotional watching my favorite blue hero up on the big screen, looking forward to the sequel. This is honestly my favorite movie just ever, honestly. There are also some people that did like it, or maybe didn't like it, and they had some things that they didn't like about the movie itself. So here's what they had to say. I loved it. It's so far the only movie I saw twice in cinemas, although I think there's a few pacing issues. I believe the movie should have been longer to avoid that and to flesh out a bit more of the backstory of the characters, but aside from that, I have zero complaints. I really liked the whole thing, except the flossing. I was super hyped for it, but tried to not be. It was honestly way better than I thought it would be. The only problem I had with it was that Longclaw didn't have enough screen time. Definitely the best video game movie. It was near perfect, 8 out of 10 for me. I loved it so much. It was tons of fun, but it was by no means perfect. My biggest complaint is that they took it too safe, but other than that, loved every second, and I'm hyped for the sequel as I'm sure it'll be better. I'm so thankful for this movie, as I was smiling ear to ear the whole time watching. The movie is flawed but very fun and enjoyable. I really loved the amount of Easter eggs in the movie. I noticed a Sonic drawing in one scene, LOL, and Jim Carrey's performance of Dr. Robotnik was very quirky and amazing. Not a huge fan of the amount of product placement mentioned in this movie, but it's whatever. So those are the comments that I got. I actually didn't get a lot of like really negative ones, and I only wanted to include comments in here that had some kind of explanation for their comments in here, and the negative ones weren't really like, there wasn't really much else to it besides I don't like it, so that's why I didn't include them. But most people, from what I could tell at least on my channel, really enjoyed this movie. But what are my overall thoughts on the Sonic movie? And so before I kind of go into like the spoilers specifically, I'll give you like a general overview of what I thought, and then I'll go into spoilers. So you can kind of hear my base opinion from here on out, but then I'll let you know when the spoilers come in so that y'all can exit the video if you haven't seen the movie yet, because I do recommend that you see the movie before you hear me talk about it in depth, because then you can kind of get about some of the things that I talk about in this video. But overall, I thought it was a very solid movie. You know, it was a very solid hour of entertainment, you know, a lot of great action scenes. I really enjoyed like the end in particular, where you got to see Sonic and Robotnik battle it out, and I don't really consider that spoiler because I think everyone knows that Sonic and Robotnik were gonna have like, a really epic battle. So I thought that was probably like my favorite part of the movie. I felt like in terms of script writing and such, there were a lot of good aspects of it. Like I thought the characterization of Sonic and Robotnik was very good, but I also felt like that the movie felt very fast paced. I felt there were instances of really nice character development in some scenes in the movie, but I just felt like the movie was trying to move through all that very quickly. So as a result, I felt like there was a lot of things that weren't as fleshed out as I would have liked them to be. It felt like a lot of lost potential in terms of characterization, and so I think that's probably my biggest critique with the movie, is that it felt a little bit too formulaic, and it felt like it was just trying to cover all its bases and not really try to dive into some really complex issues with the character, which I wasn't really expecting, to be honest, going into the movie. But after getting out of the movie, I realized, man, that would have been so great if they like expanded more upon this and really let us like live in the character for a little bit, instead of trying to like jump from scene to scene and get through the whole plot in like an hour and a half and just make it like a typical kids blockbuster movie. I think it could have used like some really great characterization, and there are lots of great cartoon movies, by the way, that do that really well. So it's not an excuse just because it's a kids movie that they can't dive into those concepts very deeply. But overall, it was still a very solid movie, and you know, I was just so happy to see Sonic on the big screen. I tweeted out after I saw the movie that I teared up a little bit actually when I first saw Sonic on screen, because I'm like, wow, this is a character that I loved so much since I was a little kid, and to see him back in the spotlight and have a whole movie to himself and have all these different people coming in to experience someone that I hold so near and dear to my heart ever since I was a little kid, that was just such a great feeling, and it really did bring some tears to my eyes seeing Sonic there for the first time. So yeah, that's the kind of person I am, and I hold no regrets to that. But those are my basic thoughts. Now let's go into the actual movie, and this is, from here on out, it's all spoilers. So I'm going to talk very in depth about the movie and about some specific scenes and such, and so this is your warning. Click out now if you don't want to get spoiled from the movie. And so we're going to go into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so let's start off with Sonic. And so in the beginning of the movie, we have like baby Sonic, obviously, and we get to see his origins with the owl. And I don't know, the owl character was so random. It was just literally the owl character was there for like 5 seconds and that was it. It didn't even feel like it was necessary. I mean, I think it's good that they touched upon his origin story a little bit, because otherwise it would seem a little bit weird to just have a random blue hedgehog here all of a sudden. But that part of the movie just felt so overglossed and not really dived into. And I understand that's not what this movie is particularly about, but it just felt like, oh, they put an origin story there because they had to, not because they thought it would add to the movie. And so I don't know, I just felt like that part felt very unnecessary, and I think the movie could have done without it. But maybe that scene will be referred to in a potential sequel, like I don't know. But in terms of this movie itself, that scene just felt completely unnecessary, and yeah, I just felt like that could have used like some more fleshing out, because Sonic's origin was basically told in like 5 minutes, and it felt very rushed and glossed over and unnecessary. And it's like his origin, it's where he comes from, it's like how he gets to planet Earth in the first place. And so I feel like that's something that could have used a little bit more explanation. You know, one example that I like to think of that shows off like a really nice way of transferring Sonic from his home planet to planet Earth was the first episode of Sonic X. And as much crap as Sonic X gets from the fan base, I thought that that episode handled Sonic transferring over from his home planet to planet Earth really well, and it had a whole half power to do that. So that's one reason why it went off a lot better for me compared to a Sonic movie. But nonetheless, it was a pretty like insignificant scene, and I felt like I would love to see more of that. But maybe in a potential sequel to explain more of it. I think for the terms of this movie, it didn't really need much explanation and much expansion. In fact, I would have argued that maybe it wouldn't even be necessary to have that scene there. Although I will say it was really cool to see Green Hill Zone in that art style, and so I don't regret them putting it in there. But I think in terms of the script writing, it just wasn't necessary. Now, in terms of Sonic himself throughout the whole movie, this Sonic is a little bit different from the Sonic that we're used to, because the Sonic that we're used to, and I discussed this a little bit in my previous Sonic video about the voice actors, but the Sonic in the video games is a little bit more mature and has had many more experiences compared to this Sonic, and so as a result, this Sonic just comes off as very young and naive, almost seems a little bit like Tails in a way, and I guess it makes sense for like an origin story and for like Sonic's very first big adventure. You know, this Sonic hasn't experienced a lot of things and he's been alone for most of his life. So as a result, he comes off as very like excited about the world, very interested in everything that's around him, and these characteristics have always been in Sonic, but they're a lot more on the front here compared to previous iterations of Sonic, and it's a little bit different, and I actually really liked it because it showed a very different side to Sonic. You know, I'm so used to Sonic being this like hero, jack of all trades, who is the most confident and the most comfortable out of the entire group, who's there to save people, he cares about people, and that Sonic always seemed very sure of himself. But this Sonic is not. This Sonic is insecure, doesn't know what he's doing, and is fighting Dr. Robotnik for the very first time, who was this massive villain that he's never encountered. So it was very interesting to see that contrast in character. I will say that there were some points where Sonic did annoy me a little bit. You know, sometimes he was a little bit too much, but I think that's the point. This is Sonic in his prime, basically. It's his first time seeing this all happen in front of him. It's his first time experiencing all these different things. It makes sense for him to be an excited little kid, and I think his chemistry of Tom kind of bounces off of this pretty well. I will say Tom was a bit of an insignificant character to me. I just felt like he was there to give Sonic someone to talk to, but in terms of his whole actual character arc, I really did not care about Tom that much. He just didn't come off as very interesting. I thought his wife was more interesting, honestly, and I don't even remember her name to be honest, but I felt like her character was more interesting. Side note, but I love the wife's sister so much. I thought she was hilarious. Such a random like gag to kind of have in the Sonic movie, having that sister criticize Tom like from all angles, but I thought the sister was just so funny, and I love seeing her like tied up throughout the rest of the movie. I just thought it was a very like funny characterization that that character had. But going back to Sonic, his attitude reminds me a lot of like Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, but except this Sonic is still more naive and unsure of himself, because even in Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, that Sonic felt like he knew what he was doing at least. You know, he was very young and naive and had a very childish attitude, but he still felt like he was sure of himself. But this Sonic was not sure of himself, and that is a major difference with this Sonic compared to other iterations that we've seen, and I just think it was so cool to see that side of Sonic, and I would have loved to see that fleshed out a little bit more. Actually, I felt like they did have a character arc in mind for Sonic, and they put it in there and they went through it as they were supposed to, but I think the movie could have used like 10 to 20 minutes more of just like fleshing out the characters more. I would love to see like even more about what Sonic is really scared of, like what Sonic really cares about, like just learning more about him and just having him express that more, because I felt like this movie had a lot of snippets of it, but it never dived into it really deeply, and that's something that I wish the movie would have done more of, because I really enjoyed what we saw here so far. I would love to see more of it, but I understand it's a blockbuster made movie. It's made to appeal to the widest audience possible. This is how a lot of movies are made nowadays that are targeted towards kids, and so while I don't think that's an excuse, nonetheless it is a reality of a lot of movies like this that come out nowadays. And so this kind of goes into my next point, where I felt like the movie was very, very fast paced, like extremely fast paced, and it's kind of funny because it is a Sonic movie, so I guess it makes sense for it to be really fast paced, but I think because it was so fast paced, there was not enough time for a lot of the plot elements to sink in. You know, I talked a lot about how like the beginning was just completely glossed over, and I think Sonic's emotional arc, it was very glossed over too. I mean, it was there, but it was not fleshed out enough for it to really have a lasting impact on me. And so this Sonic, I thought had a lot of potential because, you know, he's been alone for most of his life and all he wants is just a friend to talk to. And so we see a lot of remnants of that in the beginning, especially when Sonic interacts with Tom for the very first time and they're in the car ride and such. It's very cool to see Sonic get excited over talking to someone. But later on in the movie, we see Sonic get actually really angry at Tom because Tom wants to switch his job from Green Hills over to San Francisco to quote unquote deal with some real trouble and help some real people that really need it. And Sonic is very angry at Tom for doing this because Tom has had the opportunity to grow up in a city that he loves and get to know all these different kinds of people, while Sonic has been alone for most of his life. And so Sonic sees this as a real insult to his struggles because Sonic is like, all I ever wanted in life was to have a community that I can live with and to get to know people, and you've had that and you're throwing that all away. That's basically what Sonic is thinking, and I think that's a really interesting angle to take with Sonic because, as I mentioned in my previous video about the voice actors, Sonic nowadays doesn't really have many moments like that where he gets legitimately angry or frustrated at what's going on and shows emotion. So I thought that was really great, and I would have loved to see even more of that, but because of the fast-paced structure of the movie, it didn't really sink into me. And so as a result, I was just like, okay, I understand he's upset, but I don't really feel like he's really upset, you know what I'm saying? Like, the performance is great and it makes sense from like a logical standpoint, but I just didn't feel it. I felt like the movie didn't have enough time to really like get you to dive into it. Now, maybe it's because I'm watching this as an adult compared to when I was a kid, but when I was a kid and I saw the SpongeBob SquarePants movie for the very first time, I felt like SpongeBob's character arc was fleshed out very well within that movie because we saw from the very beginning how he was hoping to become a manager and then his hopes and dreams were crushed when he found out that he wasn't, and then you see him go through that character arc throughout the entire movie. And I just felt like it was fleshed out so well, and it lasted to the very end of the movie actually. And with Sonic, I felt like he was lonely in the beginning, but it was kind of like wrapped up in like a nice little tie and bow, like near the middle or like the end of the movie. And I just felt like there needs to be more time for that to really sit in and to flesh itself out. And I just felt like the movie did not give Sonic enough time to really make that have a lasting impact on me. But that's just me, you know, I saw the potential that was there and I would love to see it like fleshed out. Nonetheless though, I thought Sonic was characterized very well, and I really like this contrast compared to his typical video game self. And so if there is a sequel or like some kind of material coming out in the future, I would love to see this fleshed out even more, to see him grow even more from the character that we saw here to the character that he eventually becomes, such as in the games. Now, another thing I wanted to point out was Robotnik. And so I had a lot of high expectations. I didn't even realize this, but I had pretty high expectations for Jim Carrey in this movie. When I was making that video about a possible Sonic movie sequel, I was looking through all these different interviews to see what all the cast members were saying, and I loved the way that Jim Carrey talked about Dr. Robotnik. I thought the way that he described Dr. Robotnik was so insightful and so interesting, and I was really looking forward to seeing him play that out in the movie. So in the actual movie, you know, Jim Carrey did really great. I thought that Dr. Robotnik had some of the funniest lines in the movie, and his whole attitude and persona was really great overall. But I guess I was expecting too much because I felt like, okay, this is what I was expecting, but it didn't like blow me away. And so maybe if I watched the movie again, then I would get to kind of have that sink in more and really get a true opinion on whether or not I enjoyed Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. I thought he did a really great job on Dr. Robotnik from what I remember, but I think I needed to watch it again just for it to really sink in, because I think my expectations were so high that Jim Carrey was just meeting them and not really exceeding them. And so that's not really his fault. That's really just me just gassing up my own head with how much Jim Carrey was going to rock this movie, which he definitely did, but maybe not as insanely good as I was expecting. But that's just me. Now, in terms of the movie's special effects and such, I thought it was pretty solid overall. I will say my favorite part of the movie was probably the end when Sonic was battling Robotnik, because I was like, man, this is just like what I would expect like a final cutscene like Sonic Unleashed or Sonic Adventure 2 to look like in the movie theaters. You know, just having this epic face-off with Sonic versus Robotnik and having him go to all these different like places with the rings. It was such a great way of incorporating all these different locations, because, you know, Sonic is fast, and so Sonic could travel the world in such a fast amount of time. I think it was just necessary to have Sonic explore these different locations. It reminded me a little bit of Sonic Unleashed in a way, seeing him in like the Great Wall, for example, or like Egypt, seeing him across all these different locations being Sonic. It's just such a great thing for me as a longtime time Sonic fan. Speaking of the rings, I thought the rings over here were a very interesting plot device because I read this tweet a while back that basically summarized why the rings were such a good part of the plot. It basically showed Sonic's second chance at life. If he had a ring, then he always had a chance to go somewhere else where he could start over, just kind of just like in the games. But if he lost all of them, then he would be doomed. And so that's exactly like how it is in the games, and I just thought that was such a cool way to thinking about it, and I thought the rings were a really nice plot device here. And by the way, like I said before, just seeing Sonic on screen is just such a great thing and something that made me really happy in the movie theater. And no matter what kind of movie it was gonna be, just having Sonic on screen in front of everyone for the very first time for me in my lifetime is such a great thing to experience, and I'm so glad I got to finally experience it. And I'm also really excited to see how the movie's doing so well in the box office from what I'm gathering so far. It looks like it might even top Detective Pikachu as I'm recording this right now, and so we'll have to see how that turns out in the future. But overall, I think it was a very solid movie. I just think it could have used some more time to flesh out all the different concepts to really let all the development and the emotion like sink in. There was plenty of action, so there was no shortage of that. I expect nothing less from a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, but I think there are a lot of like traces of great characterization here that I would have loved to see fleshed out a little bit more. But other than that, it was a very solid movie, and I think any Sonic fan should see it because there's gonna be something for you to enjoy for any Sonic fan. There's a lot of like nods to the Genesis days. Sonic overall has a bit of an adventure feel here at the same time that I really enjoyed. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like seeing Sonic with the humans and such. It reminds me a lot of how Sonic interacted with characters in the adventure games, but at the same time he has that tinge of like that classic 90s attitude as well. So I think there's a little bit something here for everyone to enjoy, and I recommend it for any Sonic fan to check this out. I mean, you owe it to yourself as a Sonic fan to check this out because it's not every day that Sonic gets a movie in the movie theaters. Now, moving on to my last topic, which I might make a separate video about, but when you go to the end of the movie and see the post-credits scene with Tails and Dr. Robotnik, it pretty much points directly to a sequel. They want to make a sequel because otherwise they wouldn't be leaving those cliffhangers. They very much want to make a sequel to this movie, and so I think they were anticipating this movie to be very successful. And from the looks of it, it does look like it's going to be very successful. So I have no doubts that they're keeping an eye on the box office and just kind of seeing like, okay, is this a movie we can make a sequel to? And I very well think that they're planning a sequel because otherwise they wouldn't have put those things in there. They wouldn't have reviewed Tails in such a shocking post-credits moment like that. The only movies that get those things are movies that do have planned sequels, and so I think as long as the movie does great in the box office, then we very well can expect there to be a sequel with Tails being a primary character. I'm really hoping Knuckles makes an appearance too, but we'll have to see. But also, how is Dr. Robotnik gonna get back from the Mushroom Land to Earth? That's another thing that we have to consider for the sequel. So there's a lot of ways they can take the second movie. I just hope with the second movie that they do allow that characterization to flesh out a little bit more. Maybe they glossed over it a little bit in the first movie because they were planning other movies, and so there's more room to have those be fleshed out more in potential sequels. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes of this movie in the future. But that's the end of my long-winded thoughts on the Sonic movie. I hope you all got what I was saying and didn't think I was confusing at all. Thank you so much for listening to me. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What did you think about the Sonic movie? Did y'all like it? Did y'all not like it? Let me know why or why not in the comment section below. If you're going to talk about spoilers, then make sure to let people know that you're talking about spoilers so that people can make sure they can avoid it if they haven't seen the movie yet. But other than that, thank you so much. Okay, please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to my channel. You can like videos like these, want to see more in the future. Follow me on Twitter or Twitch, and join my Discord server, the Spongy Garden. Special shout out to Reese Gaming, Team Robert Sonic Gamer, Glitch Dalfrin, Andrew Coughlin, and Desiree Webb. These are my patrons / YouTube members. If you'd like to become a patron or YouTube member, get access to a whole bunch of different perks, then please check out the links in the description box below. But alright, this is the Riders, riding out.